Or just eat a Snickers.
One reason for the failure of the Russian offensive in Ukraine is that the Russians simply cannot break through the minefields that the Ukrainians have created for them. With poor intelligence, the Russians constantly fall into traps and lose hundreds of armored vehicles. Look at this video that has already spread to the whole world. The Russians have turned their offensive into mountains of scrap metal, and it seems like they don't understand what's going on. Now, I'm going to tell you how it happens. First, Ukrainian sabotage groups penetrate key sectors of the front at night and set up special anti-tank mines. Basically, they use mines of German and French production. The mines are very powerful, capable of knocking over a Russian tank upside down with their explosion, as we see in these video footage. These mines have magnetic sensors that trigger when a large metallic object approaches them. They are installed on the side of the road. The road itself must be clear to lure the Russians into a trap. Also, Ukrainian soldiers adjust their artillery so that it can accurately hit the sectors of the road where Russian tanks will have to pass. In addition, the Ukrainians are making several ambushes with javelin missiles. When the Russians begin their offensive, they advance in a column of tanks, hoping that Ukrainian soldiers will meet them in trenches with small arms. The Ukrainians allow the Russians to approach the desired distance and then activate the artillery. They knock out the first tank in the column and one in the middle of the column. The rest of the tanks start pulling over to the roadside to bypass the disabled tank. Then, smart mine sensors activate and hit the tank, even if it is dozens of meters away from the mine. Then, Russians try to bypass the disabled tank again and encounter more mines. As a result, the Russian tank column is thrown into confusion. They do not know where to move because mines could be anywhere. While the Russians hesitate and make decisions, the Ukrainians shell them with artillery and javelin missiles from ambush. The Russians abandon their armored vehicles and flee. Then, the Ukrainians finish the job and burn the armored vehicles with drones, throwing grenades at them. I will show in more detail how this is done later. And now let's get back to the minefields. Sometimes, Russian military personnel act like they possess immortality or second life. They can stubbornly go where the danger of being blown up by a mine is obvious to even a child. Take a look at this video. A Russian armored personnel carrier is rushing forward at full speed. The danger ahead is obvious. The road is clearly mined. There are craters on the road from previously detonated mines. Destroyed vehicle lies to the side.
Rush B.
But the Russians seem to ignore the danger, and the result was disastrous. These are not rare cases. It happens systematically. Here's another example. It's obvious that the road here is mined. The mines are even visible in the drone footage. These are direct action Soviet trade mines. But the driver of the Russian armored personnel carrier drives forward like a kamikaze. As a result, the transport was destroyed. But it's amazing that the crew survived such an impact. And here's another case. A Russian armored personnel carrier is attempting to pass through the same spot where two other armored personnel carriers were already blown up before it. The result was predictable, but the crew also survived.
Well, that is a
You already
big crew.
know, Ukrainian soldiers mine not only roads, but also roadsides along the roads, especially at intersections. And it seems like the Russians are unable to learn this lesson. Here's another interesting case confirming this. A Russian tank is attempting to approach the Ukrainian positions along the roadside. They think that the road is mined, but the roadside is clear. But they were wrong. Shortly after, several other tanks tried to break through the same spot and were also blown up. In general, it turned out that stopping the Russian offensive is very easy. It's enough to simply mine the roads and shoulders. In this video, a Russian tank column is stopped. The first tank is blown up by a mine. Later, the entire column was destroyed by the Ukrainian military guys. This happens constantly. Russians do not change their tactics and do not learn from their mistakes. When there are battles in the city, Russian tanks ruthlessly shoot peaceful houses and cars. Ukrainian soldiers mine city streets to stop Russian tanks. In this video, we see a Russian tank advancing along the street and firing. but then it hits a mine. Interestingly, the Soviet anti-tank mine usually doesn't destroy the tank or armored personnel carrier. The tank crew almost always remains unhurt. The task of a mine is to stop a tank. Therefore, a characteristic sign that a tank has been blown up by a mine is torn tracks and damaged running gear. Sometimes the wheels can even keep spinning, and the engine continues to run until it runs out of fuel. Tank crews usually leave such a tank with fear. The Russian...
Well, just go by planes. You avoid the mines. Easy forehead. Certworthy for Prime Sub. The Moon, Max 30 and Double Jella. Are you drunk or what? And my Uranus. Thank you, boys. Boys, geese, Vandrak, Osam Hal with the gifted sub. Couple of gifted subs. Actually, thank you very much. 5 gifted subs.
Black.
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 Black Nick.